All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show, NBA show, where we will go game by game and just kind of show you what we're doing. We'll try and answer questions along the way. We have plenty of time on this slate, only a 5-gamer, so we should. But first, I'll say last night was really good for some DFS Army members. For me, I wasn't able to late swap, so that's my fault, and it was bad because of that. But how are you feeling, man? How are you feeling, Brandon?
Yeah, it was kind of we hit on a lot of calls last night, but for me specifically, had some duds mixed in too, so it wasn't the best of nights. But there's one guy in particular who had a hell of a night, so I'll let
Yeah.
you talk about that.
Yeah, our guy Will, W Will 73 in the chat. Appreciate you, man. But congratulations to you. He took down the 100K freaking tournament. This lineup, man, is incredible. He kind of talked about how he got here in the Discord. If you're not a member, click the link. You should join. But there's some plays we were on, some plays Will just kind of got to himself. I don't know. I think this just is awesome. How do you feel about it, man?
Yeah, I mean, outside of Westbrook, which I guess if you late swap towards the end of the night, he probably fell into some of your lines, but I don't think we were on Trey Murphy either, but pretty much everybody else we covered. And Jordan Miller play 8%
Ooh.
came through big time. So
Man, I think what Will said in the chat, like the biggest thing was really you have to late swap on these slates when we get news. My guy Long Win was talking about Nurkic not showing up, but we got the news that Nurkic wasn't going to
yeah,
start, and that was an instant. I don't want to play
yeah,
that guy anymore. Brandon, I know people are asking you in the chat
yeah.
about it.
I have a rule with Nurk. If he doesn't start, I don't play him.
Mhm. And I'm working on my fitness journey right now. So I was at the gym. So there's going to be nights where you don't see me doing late swapping. But if you want to win on these slates that are going to have news, and this is another one of them, you're going to have to late swap to win. And you're going to have to get comfortable getting exposure to some of these low owned guys like Russell Westbrook, Trey Murphy, once you do that late swap. So just wanted to say congrats to you, man. That made my entire day. The fact
Beautiful.
that you took that down, and yeah, really just a lesson. Will has been here for so long. He doesn't really complain often. He's in the chat, chatting it up with us. And so to see a member get a takedown like that always just makes me pumped up.
Love it.
But we do still have a slate today. We'll try to keep the train going. It's been a couple of good slates here. Good to see everybody in the chat. James, I'll get to your question, or try to, once we kind of wrap up these games. But I'll be honest, this slate to me feels a little gross just because a lot of the studs are in god awful matchups. And then we have like one super shiny game at the end where the defenses both are pretty bad, but there's a lot of Q tags. So I feel like I can't take it too seriously. I'm just going to have to late swap it anyway. Do you agree, or do you like it more than me? I feel like you might like it more than me.
No, it is gross. I'm embracing the grossness though. So one thing I will say before we dive in is I'm just doing 20 max tonight, not 150. So have some hot takes and taking some stands and some risk here and there. So um, just wanted to say play with caution if you're following me.
That's actually a crazy comment. Just in the fact that like he was looking at Nurkic and he asked you and then he got off of him. Again, like if you're in those situations, like don't be afraid to ask someone in the Discord. Like that's literally why we're here, to help in those situations. Oh, Showtime, you're on Trey and Miller too? Nice. Those guys crush. I have a short-term memory, so I don't really remember what I did with Miller. I feel like I didn't have too much. I know I wasn't on Trey. So good calls.
Yeah,
Good calls
I
for
thought
sure.
about Trey, but I wasn't on him.
Yeah. So, all right, now we'll actually get to today's slate. Suns against the Pistons. Lowest total on the slate. Spreads at 7.5 points, but injury news is what's keeping this game semi-viable. For the Suns, they have Devin Booker out. That's huge. No DB for this team. We've seen it at times this season. It's a usage rate bump for guys like Colin Gillespie, Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal. Dylan Brooks actually sees the highest increasing usage at 9%. And then the rest of the injuries here are just injuries and guys who've been out for a while. So it's really just DB that changed things up a little bit here. Anyone stand out for you?
Yeah, I usually don't do this, especially against the Pistons, who are pretty solid defensive team. But with no Booker, there's a lot of usage up in the air, along with more minutes for some of these guys. So definitely taking some shots, especially since it's a smaller slate. And without Booker, I think everybody is at a pretty nice price. So I'm almost attacking this whole team, surprisingly. I have a 25% min on Grayson Allen. Like I said, great price, 5,200. Can be a little shot dependent here and there, but he's been in decent form recently, so definitely want to at least match the field there. And then I have 15% min on Dylan Brooks and Gillespie. Those two are probably the top two as far as usage and the amount of shots they should get up, and I think they both can pay off their lower 6K price tags. I also forced in 15% on Mark Williams. I usually like him more in spots where the other side has a solid big too, which they have Duran. So I think they'll need Mark Williams quite a bit to match up with him. So want to make sure I have exposure there. And then I wanted some value mixed into just to have some spots different than all the chalk value on Dallas. So put a 15% min on Goodwin and Dunn as well. Not my favorite plays, and I don't trust him, but it's a 5-gamer, so just taking some shots.
Yeah, that's my biggest note on like the next 4 games is the spots aren't that great. 5-game slate, worth a shot on a few of these guys. So I'm with you on a lot of this. With DB out, I want exposure to Grayson Allen at 5K. Last time out, we saw him reach like 6, low 7s at times when it comes to salary without Devin Booker. So I'm hoping this is just really him too cheap. The matchup is brutal, though. That's the only reason why I don't love it. But just the fact that Devin Booker's out, increasing usage, more opportunities is what's going to make me more open to playing Grayson Allen. So I have a 30% min on him. Gillespie, I have a 25% min on. I like being over the field. I think his ownership will come up as we get closer to lock. So I'm going to keep a close eye out for that. And then Dylan Brooks, like I mentioned, he has the highest increasing usage, 20% min on him. Goodwin's also going to be more involved without Booker, so 20% min. It's weird. I'm the opposite. I only like playing Mark Williams in soft matchups because I think he's good and aggressive. I don't think he's usually good enough to get past good defenders. But like you are kind of alluding to, he plays more in those matchups. Like his minutes floor is safer. So that makes me feel a little bit better about him. But I have a 15% min on him, just matching the field. There aren't too many like super great safe center options, and we could have better options in the later games. So that's part of why I didn't go too crazy with Mark Williams. And then Ryan Dunn, I put a 15% min on him just to kind of have some exposure to a cheap 3K player in the early game. So I'm playing a lot of these Suns, even though I don't love the matchup. It's just the injury that's making them more viable.
Yep.
Jason, I see you, man. He said a challenge to everyone in the chat to post your favorite value plays tonight. Maybe we hit on one. He's on Powell and Clayton. And while we're doing challenges, y'all hit the like button. I looked at it today. There are only 30 likes. We have like 300, 400, 500 people who watch this sometimes. We can do better. So if y'all can, hit the like button. If not, it's fine, per usual. All right, next up, we have the Pistons side of this game, and I don't love it. I'm going to double check this. There's no new injury news to talk about. Matchup against the Suns is tough. They're a good defensive team these days. I just have a 10% min on Cade because I have a 10% min on a stud who can get past tough matchups, but there's not a lot more outside of it for me. 20 Maxon, anyone stand out for you here?
Yeah, I was laughing because we literally did the same thing here. Just a 10% min on Cade and moved on for the same reasons. His upside on a small slate. Everybody else is priced appropriately, and again, Phoenix is a decent defensive team. So don't like this team at all.
Mega Royal, what did Powell do that hurt you? Like, what did he do? Yeah, don't love the Pistons. And then I'll just look at exposures right quick for these Suns and Pistons. Grayson Allen is showing up in 36% of lineups. Gillespie is showing up a little bit above the min I have on him. Dylan Brooks, slightly above where I have him, which I like. Goodwin's showing up there. Mark Williams is showing up. Ryan Dunn, right where we have those mins. And then Cade is showing up in 5% of lineups, so not exactly 10. But I don't like Cade enough to try and force him into more lineups. That's just going to have to be okay. Next up, we have the Thunder going up against the Rockets. Two good defensive teams. Total at 222, not the best. This is the first time this season these two teams have seen each other. This could be a potential, championship matchup on the West. So I think these two teams will take this game seriously. From an injury news perspective for OKC, Lou Dort is questionable. If he's out, Aaron Wiggins should start like he did last time. Nothing too wild for me here, but you might be able to talk me on to some of these guys. You like them?
No, I feel like this is one of those games where it's better to watch it versus playing it in DFS. So definitely looking forward to watching the game. But as far as playing either side, I am taking one shot on both sides, which I put a 10% min on SGA kind of for similar reasons for Cade. Slate breaking upside, only 6% owned on a 5-gamer. Taking a shot there. And not the best matchup, but on paper it should be competitive, and we know what SGA can do in competitive games. So
Yeah,
definitely going there. I couldn't get to anybody else though, so just another team I don't like overall.
I won't talk anyone off of SGA in a close game. We know he can have decent upside. I am just not playing the Thunder tonight. As you saw with Cade, I already tried to put a 5 or 10% min on him, and he only showed up in 5% of lineups. I don't have the capacity for more studs right now, so he didn't make the cut for me or any of the Thunder. The Rockets side, I like a little bit more, but only because they're a little bit cheaper. For the Rockets tonight, the reason why we don't love them is just because there isn't too much injury news. Terry Eason's out still, which means Okogie should start, Josh Okogie, but we know what this looks like. They have a pretty deep rotation. He won't see too many more minutes at his price tag, but still worth mentioning. Do you like the Rockets a little bit more than OKC?
No, kind of the same deal here. Not a great matchup for them either. The one guy I am taking a shot on, which I didn't go quite as high as you did. I put a 15% min on Sengun. Center's pretty weak, so I'm trying to just fill in my some more center spots with somebody with high upside. And again, not the best matchup, but in a competitive game, we know what he can do as well. Won't talk anybody off of KD, but I still think he's priced too high, close to 9K. He needs to be like lower 8,000s or 8,000 flat. So not going there. And then same with Amin. I wouldn't talk anybody off of playing him, especially the amount of minutes he plays. He plays close to 40 minutes, and he has decent upside too. So those would be the only other two I would consider. Maybe you can make a case for Jabari too at 6,100, but just not consistent enough for me to feel good.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a fan of this team either.
I really want to take my men off of Şengün and just not play anyone from this game, kind of like I did on Monday, and just exit all out. But I'm going to keep it for now because I almost always regret taking it off because it ends up being a guy who goes off. But the Thunder have been good against centers, and I don't know if you'll need this game too much, but we'll see. Next up, we have the Celtics going up against the Heat. Celtics are going up against Miami team. They have a decent total, 233.5, second highest total on the slate. Miami, we say it all the time, they play really good elite defense, but they play at such a fast pace, it just doesn't matter for DFS purposes. For Boston, they are healthy, so that is a little bit less interesting for them. But who do you like here?
Finally, a team that I like.
Yeah, like a
So
little bit better about these guys.
yeah, so yeah, like you said, and we continue to say it every time we have Miami on the slate. Love attacking games with them. So Jaylen Brown, of course, I have a 20% min and actually getting around 30. I keep bouncing around 30 to 40%. So I'll be over the field there. Uh, he's just been very solid. I think I said it last time they played. His floor, new floor, seems to be about 50 points, and of course his upside is like 60. I don't think we've seen him reach 70 yet, but at least 60 plus ceiling. So definitely want to take shots on him with that upside. I put a 20% man on Hauser. I'm thinking about going a bit higher. I think 4K flat, he can be a sneaky value play and a faster pace matchup where there's going to be more scoring opportunities. That's perfect for someone like him who shoots the ball a lot. So we've seen it a few times where when his shot is falling, he can end up in the nuts. So definitely want to go aggressive there. Also helps kind of get you a little different from that Dallas chalk. And then Kada, I put a 15% man on. I just love his price. And again, center is fairly weak overall tonight. So I wanted to make sure I had him in a great game environment. And then I don't love these two as much, but again, just with the environment, I wanted at least some exposure to Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. I put a 10% man on both of those guys. So that's it for me.
I like it. I like this team. The thing that I always argue with myself about against the Heat is that we'll still see stars sometimes struggle against the Heat because they are a good defense. And when that happens, we just see some other random person pop off from that team. And that's why I like what you're saying. Like, I have a 10% min on Derek White just in case that happens. I thought about Pritchard, ended up just not liking him, probably just because of my own biases. But I think a 10% min on him makes sense. I just didn't do it. And then I have a 15% min on Kita. Again, just more opportunities with this game being played at such a fast pace. John, I didn't look at the defensive stats for OKC without Hartenstein, but that makes sense. Makes me feel better about keeping them in. But good call out if it's true. I didn't look into it, but I trust you. All right. So those are the men's on Kada, men on White at 10%. Jaylen Brown's going to be the guy I'm just really taking a stand on today. I already kind of gave you the caveat that there is a path of failure here, just with it being a good defensive matchup. But Jaylen Brown's been on a tear, like you mentioned, Brandon. And with this being such a fast-paced matchup and there not being a lot of studs in good matchups on this slate, he's the one that makes sense to me, and he's the one I want to make sure I'm emphasizing here. So I have a 40% min on him. I did have a 50% min. It's because his ownership has just been kind of going back and forth. It was pushing 23%, which is, to me, round up 25, double that, 50. But now he's looking at 20% ownership. And as long as that continues to be the case, I'll just keep this 40 min instead of 50. And Hauser call makes sense to me too. Does he show up by himself? It doesn't look like it. I don't care enough about him to force it, but it's a call that makes sense. I love taking shots on Simons, but with this team completely healthy, I'm not going to do it right now. So, like you said, I like this team, but not as much exposure to as many players, just kind of going a little heavy in a couple spots. The Heat are finally not completely healthy, which makes them a viable team again. Boston, they're a good defense, so we have to make sure we remember that. That's why the total is high, but not as high as most of Miami's games. For Miami, we have Davion Mitchell out, which means Tyler Hero and Drew Smith will have most of the ball handling duties tonight. And then Jaime Jaquez, he's out as well, which means guys like Khalil Ware, Pell Larson, Jovic, and other forwards will just see more minutes with him no longer being in the mix. Still a pretty deep rotation here, but it becomes a little bit clearer. How are you attacking these guys?
Yeah, I'm playing quite a few of these guys too. Like you said, Boston is a pretty solid defensive team, but it's a small slate and they're missing two key pieces on this offense. So some more minutes and usage up in the air. So have a 40% man on Hero. Still waiting to see that upside we know he has, but one good thing is his minutes are trending up. He played 39 minutes last game. So, of course, when there's more minutes, there's more opportunity. So hopefully he can kind of show us a little more than what he's been doing. And 6,800 is still too cheap for that potential. Not my favorite plays, but I have a 20% min on Wiggins and Powell, and then I didn't go quite as high as you, just a 15% min on Bam. Again, I just really like this game environment, so want to make sure I have the other starters on this team. But my some of my favorite plays on this team is this 3 to 4K range, mainly between Pell Larson, Jovic, and Drew Smith. I went pretty aggressive there. I have 20% on Larson, 20% on Jovic, and 20% on Drew Smith, mainly for the reasons that you said before. Davion Mitchell and Jaquez are out. These guys are going to play a lot of minutes tonight, and should be like I said, fast-paced game. So just some more sneaky value. I think we can get some leverage on. So
Yeah,
like this team quite a bit.
that's a lot of leverage on Drew Smith coming in at 5% ownership. I
Yeah.
like it. I was playing it safe at a 10% min on him. I was like, okay, I'll just be a little over the field, but that 20% min's a ballsy.
He's my favorite pivot off of Jaden Hardy.
Yeah.
Everybody will be going to Jaden Hardy.
Mm-hmm. And it makes sense. So we were talking about it yesterday. I was a little frustrated that we missed the Dick call because the Grady Dick call made sense yesterday with the injuries they had. We just completely, or at least I completely forgot about him. And Drew Smith is one of those guys that it does make sense to take a little bit of a stronger stance on. If the minutes aren't there, of course, he won't get there. But I like his increased opportunity with the injuries that happen. I also have I had maybe like a 15% min on Larson, but you talked me into increasing that. So I followed you, put a 20% min on him. And then Jovic, I already have a 20% min on. I like him. I like this spot. Like you mentioned, we don't have too many great center options. And so at 4,500, he's just another cheap option. I have a lot of exposure to that Utah-Dallas game. But as everyone keeps mentioning, there is risk. And so I like having pivots. You mentioned pivot off of Hardy. Also have exposure to those guys, but I like a way to get different with them. So 20% min there. Andrew Wiggins, I went back and forth on. That's another biased guy. I just don't love him typically. So I'm just matching the field there. And then Norman Powell, 25% min. Tough matchup, but I'm going to take a shot here because I just like this game more than some of the others. And then 25% min on Bam. I keep saying it. The Celtics haven't been bad against centers by any means, but they're still small. And so Bam should be able to take advantage of this opportunity. You can say that a lot, and it doesn't mean it will happen, but I'm willing to be over the field just in case it does. And then Hero, I guess I'm going to be slightly under the field on. I have a 30% min on him. He's just cheap for the upside we know he has. His minutes are getting more stable. This should be a competitive game, and if it is, this is one of those spots. It wouldn't shock me if Hero comes through for us. So the Drew Smith call was yours, but I feel like that's really the only true stand I have. Outside of that, I just like being slightly over the field on these Miami Heat players. Let's see. Some of your questions involve guys we haven't gotten to yet, so I've been avoiding those. Blake Jackson said Anthony Simons. Do you have any thoughts on him, Brandon?
I thought about him, but when I saw that 5K price tag compared to some of the other value we have at guard, I couldn't get there.
Yeah, I get it. And I'm the same way. I didn't do anything with Simons. Especially, I'll take a shot on him when Jaylen Brown's out. When he's playing, Simons can have a pop-off game. It's just not what I'm trying to predict. Jules, I know. I knew you had Bam out. There's a few DFS Army guys who just always have Bam Adebayo X'd out. And, like, I get it. He's hurt us a few times. But for me, I'm just always open to going back. Next up, we have the Bucks going up against the Spurs. Spurs are a good defensive team. Bucks aren't half bad these days. Low total, 224.5. Relatively widespread at 7.5 points. For the Bucks, they are basically healthy. Kyle Kuzma's questionable. If he gets ruled out, then there'll be a mixture of guys. They have a ton of guys that they can just utilize to replace his minutes. Guys like AJ Green would get a bit of a boost. Gary Trent Jr. would see a bit of a boost. Gary Harris are really the main three guys I would say would benefit the most if Kyle Kuzma gets ruled out. And if he does, those minutes would be more viable. Would just make guys like Green, Trent, Gary Harris more viable. But with the information we have now, I'm not getting there. Are you liking these Milwaukee guys against a pretty good Spurs defense?
Just a few, and kind of just for the reason of it being a small slate. If it was a bigger slate, I probably wouldn't be taking these shots. But I feel like you got to take a shot on Giannis on a 5-gamer. He could potentially be the highest scorer on the slate. So I have a 15% min there, 15% man on KPJ. Am worried about his upside being kept with Giannis back, of course, but that potential is still there. So kind of like this game environment too. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the spread is a bit closer than what's projected. And then I was going back and forth, but ended up landing on putting a 10% man on Ryan Rollins. He's another guy where I typically worry about with Giannis in the mix. Especially with how much usage KPJ has, but 8% ownership on a small slate. Why not? So that's pretty much it for me.
I'll say Bam doesn't produce consistently. He does produce. He was just in the Nuts lineup, mine on Monday, so he's come through recently. But yeah, he's not that consistent. Blake's asking, do you have any thoughts about Miles Turner? Is he cheap enough for you?
No, he's just way too inconsistent. I couldn't do it, especially in this spot.
I don't play Miles Turner often, but against Wemby, that's going to be a hell no for me.
I do in certain spots. Tonight's not the night for me.
Bam is forced to perform. He has Asia Wilson sitting front row. They're fun. They're fun. For where I'm at, it's just Giannis. I have a 25% min here. Like I said, I don't love this game. I don't love the matchup for really any of these guys. But if this game stays competitive and close, it is a spot that Giannis can still perform in. It is a spot a guy like KPJ can still perform in. So I have a 15% min on him, 25% min on Giannis. It really just kind of called it a day with this team. I don't think the Ryan Rollins call is crazy. I think it makes sense at 6,600. Another guard to add into the mix. I just already have a lot of men, so he's not going to make the cut for me. AJ Green's interesting. I just think we have better options. What were your thoughts on him? I think I missed him.
Yeah, I considered him, but like you said, they're better options around his price.
Yeah. If Kuzma gets ruled out, I'll probably force a little bit of exposure there. We'll see how it plays out. Next up, we have the Spurs side of this game, and for the Spurs, they are without Devin Vassell still. Outside of that, they're pretty healthy. I haven't been picking on Milwaukee as much as I did last year. Do you like this matchup for the Spurs?
Not really, but again, I'm still taking some shots due to the size of this slate. I forced in some Castle 20% min. I just like his upside. I don't think 7,000 is too bad of a price for him. He's been fairly solid lately. Was going back and forth on Fox, but landed on putting a 15% min on him as well. and then 10% man on Champagne. He just continues to play a lot of minutes and has been hovering around 30 to 40 fantasy points. So at 5,800, I think he can be another sneaky play tonight. I was getting a little bit of Wemby around 10%, but it looks like he fell off, which I guess I'm okay with, especially if you refresh. He's showing at 20% ownership now, so I'm definitely okay with fading that as long as he's still restricted.
Let's see. Brandon in the chat is talking about Royce is going to be the slate breaker. We've seen it a couple of times this season where Royce goes off. Is he someone you're thinking about maybe putting him in on?
Actually, I think I might have missed it when we were going over the Suns, but I just have 5%. Nothing crazy.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. I already have a lot of men's on the Suns. So Royce isn't making the cut for me, but he's a fine option to add into the mix. I want to take a shot on these Spurs so bad. Every time I look at it, the only one who makes a little bit of sense to me is Castle. Victor Wembanyama, for anyone who hasn't been paying too much attention to the NBA lately, just isn't playing a lot of minutes. I really do think they're just playing it safe with him after that last injury. He didn't finish last game either. So he's just someone I'm not looking at quite yet, but I'm itching. I'm itching to take the shot, just not yet. I think I'm really just waiting for his ownership to go down. That's probably the biggest thing. This feels weird to me. Fox, yeah, I didn't get there, but I'll put a 15% min on Castle. Like you said, he does have plenty of upside. We saw him do well against OKC last time out. So we know the upside's there even when everyone's healthy. So this seems like a similar-ish game. Obviously, the Bucks aren't anywhere near as good as OKC, but just slow pace, low total, that kind of game environment seems to lend itself well to Castle having a good game. John, you like Keldon Johnson? Okay. I didn't get there, but those Spurs, they do weird things with their rotations. So if you have a lean, I'm not the guy who's going to tell you not to do something. I say sprinkle a little bit, just don't go too crazy. Just don't lock them in. All right. Next up, we have the game of the slate. Slight question mark there. It's the highest total, second closest spread. The issue here is there aren't really any studs left for either one of these teams. Utah, well, I mean, I'm starting to consider our guy a stud a little bit, but no Lauri Markkanen. Walker Kessler, he's been out. So when we look at the Jazz, we have Keontae George. He's going to be a leverage play for me tonight. I like being significantly over the field. We have Nurkic going up against the Mavs team we liked playing bigs against, but the issue of Nurkic is he burned a lot of people last night. And so it's how comfortable are you going to him after he didn't play at all literally last night? I am willing to bite the bullet here. What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I have a feeling he does play tonight. I mean, but it's Utah, so who truly knows? I'm currently at 20%, and I didn't do anything to force that in. So I'm just going to ride with it and adjust if I need to later on. But just remember the rule. If he does not start, just don't play him. Outside of that, Keontae, I'm going right back to him. I know he kind of let us down last night. He didn't shoot the ball well and took him forever to even start shooting. Like for the longest time, he only had one shot attempt. And then I don't know what got into sense of ball, but that dude just could not miss. So if you had him last night, congrats. Yeah. But definitely not chasing that, and I don't think that happens again. Could be wrong, but willing to bet on it. So I'm going right back to Keontae. He is more than a leverage play for me. He's going to be a core play at 80% exposure. So going very aggressive again. I love this spot for him. So I think he has a bounce back night. And again, 8,200 is just too cheap for his upside. So well over the field there. And then rest of the team is gross, especially with Kevin Love back. And if Nurk plays, then I can't really touch anybody else. So
yeah, like I said, if Nurk if Nurkic is not in the starting lineup, we are late swapping fast as hell. There are no questions being asked. I might run out of the gym if I have to. Like, it's just not going to make sense to have him in your lineup. But assuming he does play and start, he's going to be a leverage play for me. I want to have a ton of exposure to him in a really soft matchup. To me, it's the softest matchup on the slate for a big outside of the Mavs side of this game. And so I just want exposure to this game as much as I can possibly have. And the more exposure I have to this game, the more I can get creative if things do get weird with Nurkic not starting. So we'll see. I have a 40% min on him now, though. And then Kyle Filipowski, I have a 10% min on. This one I don't love. I don't actually like playing Cal here. But if Nurkic doesn't start again, I like already having exposure to him. So it's kind of one of those things. And depending on how news breaks out in the Mavs game, again, just more exposure to, and it just gives me more space to adjust in these lineups. So he will be one of the first people to go if Nurkic is starting. But if we don't get any additional Dallas news, then I'll probably just ride with this 10% and go with it because the matchup is still soft. And then that's it. It's really just George and Nurkic for now, and then we'll see how the starting lineup looks to see if we should adjust anything else. And then we have the last team, the Dallas Mavericks, full of Q tags. Cooper Flagg is doubtful. We don't have him in the domination station because he's not going to play. Daniel Gafford is questionable. That's big because guys like Dwight Powell, and we saw last time Cease start, are guys that will see more minutes, and then one of them will start. Robinson Earl could also see some minutes there too, so we'll see. And then PJ Washington is questionable. That's a big deal because he's seeing a ton of ownership right now. And if he's out, then you're going to see a boost to more of the forwards here and just a lot more usage because he's one of the guys who dominate usage right now of all the injuries they have to guys like Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, etc. Max Christie is also doubtful. And so guys like Hardy, Jaden Hardy, and Klay Thompson are guys who've been benefiting in that situation when he hasn't been playing. So Q tags and then some injury news we already know about, all wrapped up in a sexy package against the Jazz, the team we've been picking on all year. Brandon, what are you doing with this?
All right, so this play may make or break me, and I'm not going to really say anything negative because I have a knack for like going on a rant about somebody and then they end up smashing.
You and me both, man.
All I'm going to say is definitely since I'm playing a 20 max, I am full fading PJ Washington, and that is all I will say. Outside of that, I love Najee Marshall. It only makes sense I go super heavy on him too if I'm not playing PJ. Plays a ton of minutes and another 6K guy who has a 40-plus point upside and softest matchup on the slate. So he's another core play for me. We'll have 100% of Brandon Williams. That dude is just a baller and has been looking better than all the other guards on the team. Jaden Hardy, I'm okay with. I'll be around Phil Wade. I've been kind of hovering around 30 to 40%. Only reason why I'm kind of eating that chalk is just due to the matchup, but he hasn't been in the greatest form. Last game, he played 28 minutes and I think only put up like 17 points. So we haven't really seen much upside out of Hardy. And like I said, when we cover Miami, I think Drew Smith is a potential pivot to outdo Hardy, but he is in a great spot nonetheless. So we'll definitely have exposure there. And then not really getting to anyone else unless we get news that PJ or Gafford is ruled out. Then I would consider Klay Thompson and probably load of exposure to Nembhard. I don't know if I can still do Powell or not. That dude is just not good. So
Blake Jackson, he said, are we still playing Goodwin even though he's not starting? I wasn't expecting him to start.
Yeah.
Okay, so it didn't change anything for you there?
No.
Okay. Cool. For me, with the Mavs, First we'll just look at exposures because that matters a bit more here than my men's. Brandon Williams, he's showing up in 95% of my lineups. Gonna be in pretty much all of them. Then we have Jaden Hardy in 66% of lineups. I do have a 40% min just because he wasn't showing up earlier. I probably don't need it at this point, but I'll keep it. PJ Washington is showing up in 57% of lineups, so about 10%, 11% over the field. And then Najee Marshall showing up in 48% of my lineups. These are the guys filling up most of my lines. And the link I have a min on is Jaden Hardy. And then there's other role players I have mins on that I'll explain. But for now, I'm going to ride with it. What I'll highlight is one of these four guys, if not two out of the four guys, are almost guaranteed to not get there. We've seen it on multiple slates. Timberwolves. Last night, there's a big value team. It's rare that all of these guys will get there, but I usually just let the DS do its thing, and it will filter. Like, they're not in 99% of lineups. So I'll still have some live lines for whoever out of this group doesn't come through. Now, if you're 20 maxing or you just want to play very aggressively, I don't think it's crazy to just fade one of the four. Brandon, you're choosing PJ Washington. If I was fading one, I might lean towards a Najee Marshall or a Brandon Williams. I don't really think there's too much rhyme or reason here. I feel you, though, man, about not going on rants too much, because as soon as I go on a rant about a guy and how I don't think they're that great, they go off that night, just almost for sure. It's kind of why I've been here lately trying to do more of like I'm not fading them, or I'm fading them, but you don't have to, because if I say any more than that, almost guaranteed to pop off. But if you ever want more context, feel free to ask and we can share. But outside of those guys who are showing up a lot, I have a 15% min on Klay Thompson. He's been better lately. And especially when there's less high usage guys and he has more opportunities to take shots, he's been willing to take them. So he's not my favorite play, but I have a 15% min on him just to have some exposure and more exposure to this game. Like you said, he's a much better play if a guy like PJ Washington is out. So just like having some early exposure there. I have a 5% min on Gafford. He's questionable. It's really just attacking a soft matchup. The Jazz are god-awful defensively. And so I just like having a little bit of skin in the game for if he does play tonight. And then I have a 5% min on Ryan Nembhard. Nembhard, his questions or his minutes have not been very consistent. They've been a little all over the place, and that's the biggest problem with him. And he's not 3K. So we know he has upside. This is a soft matchup. I like being over the field on him, but he's a kind of a crazy play. So that's another one, kind of like the blanking on his name. Kind of like Filipowski, where if we get late swap options, he's one that wouldn't shock me if he falls off a good bit. And that's pretty much it, y'all. That's the slate in a nutshell. It's an interesting one. Late game is probably my favorite, but it gets a little messy. Asian is asking about Hardy or Clayton Jr. Clayton Jr. did well last night, right?
Yeah, I would still go Hardy, though. I don't like Clayton as much with some guys coming back, especially if Nurk plays.
Yeah, that's the main thing for me. I like Hardy more. It becomes more of a question if Nurkic isn't starting. Then it might be a little bit more of a toss-up. Rodney, I missed this one. Thank you for bringing it back. He said, how many Boston players is too much? How many Boston players are you getting? It's something I'm curious about. But do you have a question, or do you have an answer for this?
I mean, I'm not – most of my lines only have 1 to 2, but my rule of thumb is especially on teams that I don't have too much exposure to is no more than 3.
Yeah. I don't have like a set rule here, but I'm not getting too much of Boston in one particular lineup, but I'll take a closer look here and just make sure I'm not missing anything, because, hey, you might see something that I would be a little bit more worried about. But I agree. Like, my go-to number would probably be 3 on a slate like this. Yeah, I just see Jalen. Yeah, I'm not getting a lot of the Celtics in runs. Are you?
Yeah, like I said, most of my lines only have 1 to 2, nothing more.
Yeah, I'm only seeing 1, sometimes 2. but I wouldn't have been mad about 3. So that's kind of just the way things are shaping up there. So that's going to be everything, y'all. These are, I don't plan on changing anything unless we have to late swap. Appreciate you all. No show tomorrow. There might be a tactics for the divisional football games, but I have a coworker event to go to, have a colleague leaving, so we'll get there. But next week, we'll start having Friday shows again. So we're almost back, boys. All right. Good luck, y'all. Have a good one.